Hey y'all, thanks for tuning in to season 4, episode 3 of the Peace Podcast. Just let me surrender the need to control, whatever that looks like. And so oftentimes we do this thing where we feel the need to control everything. And we listen to that voice in the back of our head that says, if we control everything, then everything will be safe. And one, there's really no circumstance in which you can control everything. And two, we sometimes forget to dig a little deeper and figure out that that control is really fear. It's fear of what could potentially happen in the unknown. And we believe that the more we try to control, the better we'll feel. And then we get an attachment to the control. And so we need to be able to control something in order for us to feel safe. And so control equates to safety, even if the two don't live in the same space. And so I'll talk about this a little bit later and make it make more sense. But it's the reason why eating disorders and OCD, obsessive cleaning and those type of things can form in people, even though it doesn't connect to the thing that they're actually trying to control. And so trying to control everything is really not a strength. It's a wound. It's a wound that we developed years prior, and now our adult selves are saying, well, I know that when I control things, that I'm able to keep the people that I love safe, keep the variables at a minimal, and know that things are going to go off without a hitch. But when I'm not able to control everything, then everything's going to be chaotic. I'm not going to be able to trust the people that I hand it over to, etc. So we're going to talk a little bit about where that fear is coming from, how it's driving the control, and how practicing surrender without losing your sense of self will help you to navigate the world not needing that control, being able to release the grip of that control, but also to experience peace. Because when you are incessantly in need of control, peace cannot follow you because you're hypervigilant, looking for all the things that could go wrong, and you're prepping and planning for all of those scenarios because you have the need to control the situation. And so where does it come from? Well, that fear comes from an unpredictable space. So if you've been in an unpredictable space, then the fear says, my nervous system says, I need to control everything. And so it really is a nervous system response. And if you're familiar with polyvagal theory, you'll know that a lot of the things that we do are our nervous system responding and not necessarily us creating a plan of response. It's almost like a reflex to respond that way. And so if you grew up in a space where if you didn't control things went chaotic, then you developed a habit of controlling and needing to control. And that control and needing to control literally became an instinct as opposed to a thinking through the process. So your nervous system is really using that control to protect yourself. And if you grew up in a space where it was super unpredictable inside of your household, that wires your brain to cling to control because it needs control to be safe. And so if you've looked up attachment theories or you know anything about the attachment research, that anxious attachment and that need to control things is your body saying the only way to remain safe in an environment that's unpredictable is to cling to the control of the thing, because if I anxiously attach to it, then I can be hypervigilant, I can watch everything it's doing, and I'm going to be able to create safety by predicting what's going to come next, predicting the outcome of what could potentially happen, and then preparing for that. And even though surrender is safe, even though there is safety inside of surrender, when you've grown up in that type of environment, it's hard to even determine that you can surrender to God, because you don't even trust Him to do the thing that's going to be best for you, because in your earthly being, you couldn't trust your caretakers to do it. So why would you trust anyone else to do it? But when you're able to surrender and you're able to truly hand it over, it does signal safety in your nervous system, and it activates your parasympathetic nerves, and it promotes the calm and clarity that you're looking for, because you're able to say, I know that when I hand this over, I know that when I give it to the one who created life for me, that I'm going to be safe and that everything's going to be okay. Then you're able to detach from the responsibility, and you're able to let go of the weight of that thing. And I know that it's really difficult, because sometimes we think that letting go equates to powerlessness. And so we feel like if we let go, then we don't have power over the thing. And if we don't have power over the thing, then how could we possibly navigate it in a way that's going to benefit everybody in the environment? But letting go doesn't mean powerlessness. It simply means that you're able to strengthen your trust. You're able to develop emotional resilience, because you're trusting yourself to not have to control everything, but you're also trusting God to do exactly what you need when you need that thing without worrying about it. And so that fear that you developed in childhood will walk around and masquerade as control, but it's really the fact that you're afraid, because you know what's happened in the past when you didn't control everything, that it was chaos. And so I'm afraid that that's going to happen again. And so therefore I have to control everything. The control is really the mask, because the fear is the emotion that's causing it. But true surrender is choosing the present moment and the peace that comes with that, and the ability to be in that peace over the illusion of the safety from manipulating the situation or controlling the situation or outcomes. And even though it's really hard to say, I'm going to let go of that control, because then your fear shows up, if you address that fear and you tell yourself that you're still safe even when you're not in control of the things, you can still experience calm even when you're not in control of the things, that you've handed it over to the one who can do all things well, you'll be able to experience those things in their depth, because you have addressed the fear that's causing the control in the first place. So the thing that I told you that I was going to address later is how eating disorders connect to this sort of control and fear thing. And so as I've talked about before, like I developed an eating disorder in my early teenage years, probably more like 11 or 12. And once you've had an eating disorder, that eating disorder brain speaks to you often. And so something that I learned as I was going through the adulthood parts of trying to heal this part of me is that it's not necessarily about the weight. It's not necessarily about the way that you look, that it's more about the control and the amount of relief and the amount of success that you experience when you're able to control something like food consumption. It's also about the way that people might view you. And so if I can control what I eat, then I can control the way people see me, and then people are going to see me as this version of myself that looks put together and under control, and that's the way that I want to be perceived. And I can tell you that no amount of control on the inside is going to really, or on the outside is really going to affect what's going on the inside, because honestly, the real ailment that I had to uncover and heal was my fear that if I didn't control the food, then people were going to perceive me in a different way. Fear that if I wasn't perfect, that people were going to think differently of me. Fear that if I didn't have the willpower to control this thing, that I wasn't going to be able to be in control of my own life the way that I wanted to. And so it spirals out of control. And some people are emotional eaters and that's the way they deal with stress. Some people are drinkers and that's the way they deal with stress. Some people, exercise or run or whatever it is. And in those years, the way that I dealt with stress was to control food more. And so it was like, okay, well, my day felt out of control, but at least this is the thing that I can control. My childhood feels out of control because I don't feel like I have a voice anywhere in it, but I can control the food that I consume. And so it became a way for me to be able to control how I moved, because internally I could latch on to the fact that I was controlling that thing, even if no one else knew that that's what I was doing. It doesn't really work. It definitely negatively affected my health. And I had to be able to let go of it because it wasn't benefiting me in any way, but also it was actually harming me in the process. And that need to control didn't go away. But I had to put it into healthier versions. And that's why this year my word is surrender, because control in excess in any form is not good for anybody. And it's not healthy when you do it with food, but it's also not healthy when you do it with anything in excess. And so I wanted to be able to let go of that, and surrendering is the only way to let go of that and to really uncover what that fear is telling you. So this week, I want you to really just think about spaces where you're the most controlling, spaces where you would consider yourself over controlling, and try to address the fear that's under that. So write down the place where you're overly controlling and write down the fear that you feel. If you didn't control that thing, what would happen and what are you afraid of happening? And then practice releasing just a small bit of control of that thing this week. Let's say something pops up and you see yourself trying to control that area. With that particular thing, with that little piece of it, hand it over and surrender it and say, this is not mine, it is yours. I'm trusting you to do with it what you will. I'm not going to control this. And then write down how it feels. So write down that area where you feel yourself over controlling. Write down what it is that you think that is the fear that's underneath of that. And then go out and try to give 10% of that in surrender and write down how that makes you feel. Because trying to control everything is not a strength. It is a wound, and it is a wound that you can heal by identifying where the fear is driving your control and how to practice surrender in those moments so that you can let go of that control and live in a space of peace. My hope is that that happens for you starting this week. If this video resonated with you, remember to like and subscribe to my channels. Make sure you share this with other people because it could just be the catalyst that they need to change the bondage that they're experiencing so that they may live a life of surrender and freedom. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you again next time.